Welcome to our lesson on working with walls. Today we're going to discuss working with walls, setting the height, the reference line, and many other aspects. Let's start by double-clicking the wall icon in the toolbox. As you can see up here, the first thing we've got is a setting for the wall height. So by just typing in whatever height we want, that will give us the height that the wall is going to be when we draw it on the plan. This box here will tell us how far we want the bottom of the wall to be off of the bottom story of the plan, or alternately working here to project 0, or the absolute base height. When drawing a wall, given three options here as to where this reference line is going to be on the wall, whether it's either the left, the center, or the right, being the inside, middle, or outside of the wall. On residential projects, you may want that in one place as opposed to another place on a commercial project. These boxes here give us the geometry method, whether it's a straight wall, trapezoid, or a polygonal wall, or a shaped wall. And we'll see how each of those work. These boxes here tell us whether we're going to have a straight up and down wall, a slanted, a double slanted, or this one here, a wall with a complex profile. In this drop-down box we have other options. First option here, show on stories, gives us an option to show it on a home story only or all stories. In other words, if you have a wall that starts at the bottom, goes through the first floor and into the second floor, you may want to show that on one plan or the other plan, or both plans. And there are various other options regarding how the wall looks on our floor plan display. In our model display drop-down box, these boxes here give us the option to change the colors. And as you can see, we'll have an option to have separate colors on the inside, the edge, and the outside of the wall. This part of the model drop-down box gives us our wall colors. By clicking, we can select from various different colors, some with some hatching that they're going to be applied and others without. But just as an example, let's click paint for this wall here, a red paint. And by clicking this link material button, we'll turn all materials on the wall automatically to the red paint. We'll draw our wall. We'll right click to bring up our context menu, and we'll ask it to show all in 3D. Using the scroll wheel, I'll zoom out a little bit. We'll select the orbit button, and as you can see, both sides of the wall, top and bottom, are red. We'll go back here to the navigator and we'll click on the first floor. grab our arrow, select the wall, bring up our context menu, select the wall settings, and let's change that to a brick with a Flemish bond, and unlink it. Change the edges to the default wall. Click OK. Right click for our context menu. Show all in 3D. And now you can see that the surface on one side has the brick, a different color for the edge, and a different color for the other side of the wall. Now usually when starting a project, we want to start down here at the project origin. If I click here and start to draw a wall, you'll notice that this tracker comes up. A tracker giving us the distance of the wall and also the angle of the wall. That tracker can be turned on and off up here with this button that allows us to show or hide the tracker. These guidelines, which will snap in 15-degree increments, can be controlled up here with guidelined button, and they can be turned on and off. This is an essential aid in drafting quickly with ARCHICAD. So if I start a wall and I continue in this direction, type in 50 feet and click enter, that wall will go to 50 feet. If I come up here to geometry method and I select continuous, and again I draw that same wall, click in 50 and then enter, you can see we now automatically start drawing the next wall. Let's pick up this guideline here that goes perpendicular, and we'll type in, say, 20. And let's pick up this guideline at a 60-degree angle, and we'll type in 30 and click enter. Let's look at some other ways to draw walls. As you've seen already, we can draw a straight, a continuous, but we can also draw a rectangle, which by dragging along a diagonal, we can put in, say, a dimension of 50, which will give us a square 50 by 50. Control Z, get rid of that. We can type in 50, then highlight dimension 2 and click in 40 and then hit enter. That'll give us a rectangle that measures 50 by 40. Control Z out of that. Now this button here gives us an option to draw circles. Again, using the tracker, we can enter a radius of, say, 25. Click enter. And that'll give us a circular wall with a radius of 25 feet. Now as we rotate our line around here, we can tell it to give us an angle of 90 degrees. And that'll give us a 90-degree semicircle rotated at a 25-foot radius. Control Z out of that. Another way of drawing a circle is with 3 points. So say we had a point here and a point up here and another point here that we wanted to draw a circle around. We could do it that way. Control Z. An illustration of working with guidelines. Now, if I want to draw a wall parallel to this one, I can bring my cursor over here. You can see we pick up that guideline, and you can see right here little parallel hash marks. It tells us that we're now going in a direction parallel to that wall that we just picked up with a cursor, and we can follow along there and draw a wall, this wall, parallel to that wall. Okay, let's check this one out. This is the rotated rectangle. So if I start my wall and draw it, say, at an angle of 45 degrees and a distance of 40, and then bring my cursor out this way and give us a distance of 30 and put enter. We've got a rectangle that is rotated at the degree that we first drew in for the first wall. Now let's look at some other things that we can do with walls. We'll make a few rectangles here. Now, one way we can trim the walls is by holding the Control key. You'll notice that when we put the cursor over the wall, we have a little scissor, and if we click, that will trim that wall. If we select a wall, I place the cursor on it and click again, we'll get the pet palette. Let's look at some of the things that we can do with the pet palette. With this little button here, we can insert a new node. Here we can curve the edge of the wall. A different way to curve the edge of the wall. We'll use this button to just drag the wall. This button to stretch the wall. Alright. Alright, some other ways we can work with walls. If I've got the arrow tool and I select a wall and then I right click, I'll bring up the context menu, which will give me some other options, such as wall selection settings, select and activate tool. I can cut, I can copy, I can paste, I can delete the wall, I can move the wall, I can drag it, rotate it, mirror, I can elevate the wall, I can drag a copy, rotate a copy, mirror a copy, drag multiple copies, rotate multiple copies, and multiply. I can change the display order. I can bring it to the front, I can bring it just forward, I can send it backwards, or I can send it all the way back. With the layers, I can select to lock the layer or hide the layer. I can capture the profile of the selection, which we'll get into later using the profiler. We can show the selection / marquee in 3D, show all in 3D. We can zoom to the selection, or we can deselect. Alright, what else can we do with the walls? If I take my arrow tool, click, and drag a box around all the walls, select them all, and then I click on one of the corner nodes, the pet palette comes up. I got some additional options. The one selected now is to offset all edges. Now, if I were to drag this out and want to offset all my edges 4 foot, I could put in 4 and enter, and all our edges would be offsetted. Control Z, select it again. This tool here will give me a fillet or a chamfer. With all the walls selected, if I were to put in a radius of say 3 feet, apply to all corners and click OK, you notice we've got a 3-foot radius applied to all corners. Of course, if just 2 of the corners were selected and we did that, we'd have just that corner selected and changed accordingly. We'll Control Z. I'll chamfer, say 5 feet. Select OK. As you can see, we've chamfered just that corner. Okay, let's explore what we can do with this little list of tools here down at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. This first button is the navigator, which will turn your navigator on and off. The second button is the navigator preview. This will give you a little window here in which you can grab and pan around the project to select a view. This button will turn your quick options on and off. This button will allow you to modify or change the scale. This button will give you the ability to set the size of the various zoom options. This is the scroll zoom button. If I click that and left click on my mouse and hold it down, we can zoom in and out by panning our cursor across the screen. This is the increase zoom. By clicking that button, I can draw a box around a particular area and it will zoom to that area. Just the opposite with the reduce zoom button. This is the pan button, which gives us a little hand, which is by left clicking we can grab and drag the project around the screen any way we want. This little button here will fit the whole project into the window. This will give us our previous zoom, and as you can see, we can go back through a history of those zooms, or same thing, we can go forward through a history of those zooms. Okay, let's take a look at our door tool here. If I double click on the door tool, it'll bring up our door default settings dialog box. Up here we have the object library, which gives us a good selection of objects to choose from as far as what door we want to place in our wall. We've got curtain walls to work with. We've got commercial doors, metal doors, including a revolving door, just openings, which would be empty openings. We've got an arched opening, a Gothic opening, a horseshoe opening, an OG centered opening, it's the semi-arched opening. As you can see here, we can adjust the width of the door, the height of the door, the arc height itself, the resolution on the curve and the arc, whether to show the arc in 2D, etc., etc. We've also got special doors. We've got archtop doors. We've got bifold doors, garage doors, a hinged gate, and sliding doors. We've also got wood and plastic doors. We've got wood entrance doors, and we've got internal doors, and a variety of storefront openings, all whose parameters can be adjusted. Let's start with placing a door in the project. We'll go to metal doors. We'll take the D2 metal door. And as you can see, when we select that, we have a palette come up that gives us a choice to choose from various different parameters. General settings menu, frame settings menu, leaf setting menu. Let's pick this HV grid. Masonry arch settings menu, the handle settings, the floor plan symbol, and the 3D representation. In this menu we can choose all the various different materials that we'd like for the doors. Click OK. Now if we put our cursor on the wall, we'll get a Mercedes. I click once and we get an eyeball. With this we can choose which side of the wall we'd like the door to open. So we'll have this open to the outside, and that's how we place a door. Okay, let's take a look, see how this looks in the 3D view. We'll right click and select Show All in 3D. Fit to our window. And there's our entry door in the 3D. Okay, let's take a look at what we can do by zooming in on this in the 3D view, selecting it. We can edit this door in the 3D view window by clicking on various hotspots or nodes. We get a pet palette that comes up. This first button will allow us to stretch the door horizontally. Control Z. This next button allows us to stretch the door vertically. Control Z. Here we can drag the door horizontally. Here we can elevate the door. Control Z. Rotate, mirror, multiply. Let's try the multiply. We'll drag and distribute one copy. Click OK. We'll grab a node here, slide a copy down, click. As you can see now, we have another door. So we can work it, edit in 2D, but we can also do most of the same things that we can do in 2D in the 3D window. If we switch back to the floor plan, you can see that the changes that we made in the 3D window are also represented on the floor plan and subsequently carried throughout the project. Another little trick, let's select the wall tool, Control A on the PC, select all the walls, right click, pull up our wall selection settings box, and with just a couple of clicks we can change the settings for the walls. Again, in the 3D view, wall colors have now changed. Okay, let's take a look at placing windows, very similar to doors. We'll double click on our window tool. Again, we've got a very extensive library of window parts that we can put in. We've got metal windows, various different opening shapes that we can put in, curtain walls, door fronts, awning windows, bay and bow windows, casement windows, feature windows, fixed windows including glass block, some gliding windows, single and double hung windows, and various special windows. Of course, if these don't meet your needs, you can always make your own window, but that'll be a separate lesson. Let's pick a casement window. W2 casement. Again, as with the doors, we have extensive set of menus in order to adjust the parameters of the windows, the general settings, the frame settings, the sash and grill settings, the casing settings, the sill settings, masonry arch settings. We can add shutters to the windows. Our floor plan symbol settings, the 3D representation, and the materials. I click OK. Again, as with the door, we put our cursor where we want the window. It'll turn into the Mercedes. We'll click and we tell our eyeball that this is the outside. We'll zoom in. I'll use our arrow tool. As you can see, we've automatically labeled this window the number 1 window. If we're to select this window, and we click on a node, our pet palette comes up, and as you see, we have some additional options here: rotate, mirror, elevate, multiply, and stretch. As you can see, we can stretch that window, and we can change the width of it. We can type in the dimensions, say 6 feet, click enter, and now we have a little window that comes up that tells us the window is a W2 casement 11, the width 5 foot 11 and a half, the height 5 feet, and it gives us to the distance to the wall base of 1 foot 11 and 13/32 of an inch. Take a look at this in the 3D window. Use our orbit tool to rotate, zoom in, turn off the orbit, select the window, and as in the doors, clicking on one of the points gives us basically the same options. We can stretch the window horizontally in the 3D window. Control Z. We can stretch the height. Control Z. We can drag it horizontally. We can elevate. We can mirror. And we can multiply. Control Z. Okay, let's take a look at some other ways that we can place windows and doors. Go back to our floor plan and zoom out. Now, if I select that window and press the Alt key, we'll get an eyedropper so that I can pick up the parameters of that window. If I place my cursor on another wall, as you can see, we picked up the parameters of this window, and we now place another window exactly the same in another wall. Now if we go up to here to special snap points, click on half, you'll notice when we put the cursor on the wall, we'll get these little hash marks that tell us the halfway point on this side of the wall and the halfway point on that side of the wall. So again, if we put our cursor on the halfway point and click, give it an opening direction, we've got a window that's placed exactly in the middle of the wall. Control Z. Now, going back to special snap points, if I click on divisions, which is currently set at 3, and I put my cursor on the wall, I've divided that wall into 3 divisions. I can put my cursor on that division there, and this one here, and again they're spaced according to the divisions that we selected. Control Z, Control Z. Now if I select the distance, and set the distance at, say, 1 foot 4 inches. I hold my cursor on this end of the wall. We'll start from this end and we'll have marks placed at 1 foot 4 inches along the wall. Remove that guideline. If we come over here and place the cursor there, we'll start with 1 foot 4 inches from this corner. So let's place our window again, but this time we'll select placing it, instead of from the center, from the edge of the window. up in our info box right here. This little eyeball will tell us either to the left or the right. We'll select right, and outside, and there's our window placed 1 foot 4 inches off the corner. That's something that the masons like. Okay, now one more thing I should tell you about regarding these special snap points. First of all, let's draw another wall. I'll pick up the parameters of this one, and we'll draw a wall, say here. I'll go back to our snap points, select half. I'll go down here, we'll put the cursor on the wall, and you'll notice that our halfway point right here is not between this corner, and this corner, or sorry, between this corner and this corner, but the entire length of the wall. And this is how we adjust that. Come up here to our special snap points and select between intersection points. Now when I place my cursor over this wall, you'll see that the mark comes up between this corner and the intersecting point between this wall and the wall that it's running into. Again, if I put my cursor over the edge of this wall, which has nothing intersecting, our marker will be in the middle of the entire wall. Okay, let's explore the tracker a little bit more. Notice if I select this wall here and begin to stretch it out, our tracker comes up. Now if I hit the tab key, that'll highlight the distance. If I hit it again, it'll highlight the angle. One more time, and it'll bring up the X, Y, and Z coordinates. So if it's important for you to draft using X, Y, Z coordinates, etc., you have this option available to you. Now, one other thing that you should be aware of, if I place my cursor on the edge of the wall, on this wall you'll see it turns into a darker Mercedes, and this wall, this edge of the wall, is a lighter Mercedes. The darker Mercedes tells you the reference line of the wall. Lighter Mercedes gives us the other side of the wall, as selected earlier with our reference line selections. With the wall selected, you can see that right now we have our reference line on the left. If I click here, our reference line is now in the center, and if I click here, the reference line has changed all the way over to the other side. Mercedes now is dark on this side and lighter on this side. Now how does that help us when we're drafting? Let's pick up the parameters of this wall. If I put my check mark right here and draw another wall, you can see that it cleans up nicely. Control Z. If I put it here and draw another wall, it has not cleaned up. Control Z. I think you can see this a little better if we draw walls at an angle from the reference line. Cleans up nicely. Control Z. If we go this way, we've got a break in a wall. Alright, let's review some of the cursors that we see when we're working with ARCHICAD. If I were to draw a wall, say starting here, you'll notice up here that we have an empty pencil, meaning that this wall is not snapped or aligned with anything. Come down here to this alignment point, you can see that the pencil color is changed, showing that we're now in a line with a snap point. And as we bring it closer to the wall, we get a perpendicular cursor telling us that the wall is now perpendicular to the wall that it's intersecting. If I draw another wall and I pick up a corner of a wall, you'll notice that the black pencil comes up, meaning we've intersected with a corner, and we click, and the intersection of the two walls cleans up nicely. Control Z. One more we can take a look at here. Say I want to draw a section through the building. If I click on one end and then on the other, we get the eyeball. And depending upon which side of the line we place our eyeball, will give us the direction of the view of that section. Control Z. Okay, let's take a look at another couple of tools in more detail here. The eyedropper and the syringe and how they work. Let's zoom in on a window here. We'll pick that window up. We'll go into Window Selection Settings. And let's change the width of that window to 3 feet. Say we want to change this window here to match this window here. What we can do is we can click on Pick Up Parameters with the eyedropper and pick up the parameters with another click. Then we can inject the parameters into this window here. And now you can see that these two windows are exactly the same. Control Z. Another way to do that is to hold down the Alt button, which gives us the eyedropper. Place it over the element. When it's highlighted, give it a click. Come back over this element. Hold the Control and Alt keys down at the same time. You'll notice again the element's highlighted. I will give it a click. And this window has picked up the parameters that we've requested. Okay, let's take a look at another couple of ways of placing windows and doors. We'll fit the building in the window. I'm going to hold the Alt key down, pick up the parameters of this window, and we'll come over to this wall here and place a window over here. Try that again. Now if I zoom in on that, select this window, click on it again to bring up our pet palette. You'll see here we can select multiply. Now if I happen to want, say, 4 copies of that window distributed throughout that wall, I could click OK. Again, click on one of the nodes or a corner, and I can drag 4 copies of that window across that wall with one click. Control Z. Now let's say I want to do the same thing on a curved wall. Let's select this wall. Click on it again. As you recall, ARCHICAD has a tendency to remember the last command and bring up the same menu, but we'll cancel out of this and we'll go back to our pet palette and we'll put a curved edge on this wall. Click OK. Click on our window again. Click multiply. A palette comes up with the same number of copies that we had entered on the last go around. Click OK. And notice how we can spread out the windows on a curved wall. One more look at our building in the 3D model. And that's it.